For the Kayan people of Myanmar, there is a body modification practice that has grown to some level of infamy: neck rings. These neck rings worn by women and girls to give the appearance of elongated necks. Though the truth is something more disturbing. In today's video, we will cover the practice, why it may have started, and the disturbing reasons why it continues. The use of neck rings is seen in the Kayan people of Myanmar, which was formerly Burma. The practice sees the use of brass or golden rings around a woman or girl's neck. The rings are first put on between the ages of 5 and 9, when the bones are smaller and more flexible. As the child grows, more rings are added to the coil, an average of 1 ring every 2 years. When the child reaches around 15 years old, the girls have a choice as to whether they will continue to wear the rings or not. The pressure of the neck rings pushes down the clavicle and the ribs, giving the illusion of an elongated neck. The total weight of the rings can weigh as much as 5 kilograms. Many women who wear the rings experience a regular pain. Few have access to healthcare, so instead, they chew on betel nuts as a form of pain relief, but these have addictive properties. The Kayan people are not alone in the practice of wearing neck rings. The practice developed seemingly independently amongst the southern Ndebele people who reside in South Africa and Zimbabwe. But much like the Kayan people, it is the women who will wear these either brass or copper rings called idzila. These are first worn when a girl becomes a teenager or when she marries. The rings are a symbol of the woman's commitment to her husband. It is tradition that a husband provide for his wife with as many rings as possible as a sign of his wealth. It is also custom that the rings remain worn until the husband's death. In addition to the neck, such rings are also worn on the arms and legs. However, unlike the Kayan, it is far more common that the women of the Ndebele tribe take off their rings, not wearing them on a permanent basis. Despite the dramatic deformities caused by the rings, there is limited information about the health risks associated. Only one study has been carried out, comparing the health of 2 groups of 14 Kayan women. One of the groups wore rings, whilst the others did not. The first study did reveal some evidence of the health risks. Women with the rings tended to have higher blood pressure and lower respiratory function, putting these women at a higher risk of health problems. Although it is a limited study, the researchers did stress that there is likely a health risk and that further research ought to be carried out. But more readily apparent is that the rings discolor the skin, cause bruising, and the loss of muscle tone in the neck. Just why this practice was first adopted is not entirely clear. One theory looks to the rings being used to protect the women and girls from tiger attacks, though the effectiveness of this is unlikely. Other explanations point to the rings being used to alter the appearance of the women as to make them unattractive to rival tribes that might abduct them. Others look to the change and exaggeration of a long, slender neck being desirable sexually. Part of this also looks to the woman taking on a dragon-like appearance, in honor to a glorious, long-necked dragon woman from whom the Kayan people believe to have come from. Regardless of the reasons why the practice started, it became the identity of the Kayan people, and a significant way to differentiate themselves. The Kayan people are a minority group in Myanmar, and are themselves a subgroup of the Karenni people. They had previously enjoyed independence from both the British Empire and the Burmese Kingdom. The Karenni states that were then formed as a result happened to be on resource-rich lands, leading to their forcible removal. There had long been disputes between the Burmese and Karenni people, who after the Second World War were oppressed. In 1962, a military coup in Burma sought to modernize the country. Part of this involved the crackdown on customs and tribes that the new government considered to be primitive. This included the practice of wearing neck rings. Subjected to assault, forced labor, and denied human rights, an armed conflict developed. In the 1990s, the conflict intensified between the Karenni and the Burmese government, to the point as to cause the Kayan people to flee from Myanmar to the northern hills of Thailand, in the region of Mae Hong Son. It is against this backdrop that members of the Kayan Lawi tribe saw the importance of the neck rings, cementing the rings as an important part of their identity. When they got to Thailand, they were not granted refugee status as one might expect. The Kayan were instead given status as economic migrants. Living in guarded villages, members of the tribe were denied access to settled status. Crucially, they were denied an identification card that allows for their free travel, the right to work, and for them to integrate into Thailand. For the men of the tribe, job opportunities are limited, and to venture out to search for work runs the risk of arrest. Many are trapped in these villages, which are often used as tourist attractions. For a few dollars, tourists can pay to visit these villages. The money which is generated does not end up with the villages, nor is the money put into improving the infrastructure of the village. The villages are often made of a number of shacks. The use of modern devices is discouraged or even prohibited as to maintain a primitive feel to the villages, something the Thai authorities push. Even farming on the land is prohibited. The villagers do receive an allowance along with food and toiletries. For some, the only way to make a decent amount of money is to sell handmade trinkets, clothing, or to charge for photographs with their elongated necks. The wearing of the neck rings allow the women to earn money, but traps them in living what is essentially a gift shop. It could even be described as a human zoo, operated and controlled by the Thai authorities for their own benefit. The term human zoo is not our own, but rather comes from the UN's Refugee Agency condemnation of the villages. As many as 40,000 tourists visit these guarded villages every year. The women therefore face a difficult decision, whether they should continue the practice to make money, whether they return home, or continue to apply for Thai ID. Just how ethical it is to visit the Kayan people in the guarded villages whilst they are exploited by the Thai authorities is certainly a difficult question. Even more so when one considers the limited options available to the villagers, given their limited citizenship and difficulty returning to Myanmar. It isn't only the Thai government who maintains control over the women of the Kayan tribe. There is also a great societal pressure to maintain their way of life, and those who reject it can be shunned for rejecting the rings. One example of someone who did reject the rings was a woman named Zemba. She wanted to leave the village and move to New Zealand with her family. She was initially prohibited by the Thai authorities, despite them having no legal reason to stop her. Zemba and other members of her family therefore removed their neck rings, stepping away from being part of the tourism trade. However, Zemba and her family's choice was seen as disgraceful by other members of their village, leading them to be shunned. When looking at harmful practices, it is important to appreciate just how the situation can be improved. With the example of the Kayan people and neck rings, it is hard to separate the practice from the dire situation many find themselves in. The rings maintain to be part of the people's identity, a reason for their persecution, whilst being a method for the women to earn money in an otherwise exploitative situation. Whilst many young women are starting to reject the rings, the impact and the deformities caused at such a young age and the evidence as to the detriment of health are truly disturbing.